important conversation that we're trying to have here today is really about looking at how does research and development directly impact GDP. And I have a fantastic panel of stalwarts with me, so I'm really excited for the conversation. But to set the stage and the premise, a quick context setting. India's R&D spend is at about 0.65% of our GDP. To give you a comparative, with South Korea, that's about 4.9%. We trail the US, which is at about 3.5%, and China at 2.4%. Under the Atmanirbhar Bharat scheme, the interim budget that's allocated is 13,208 crores to R&D, and the Anusandhan National Research Foundation drives research translation, right? But a lot of times, like we were talking about it, there is too many a slip between the cup and the lip. Since 2016, Startup India has recognized about 1,59,157 startups, which have generated about 1,66,000 jobs and has produced about 100 unicorns. 187 startups now benefit from Section 81AC tax relief, which is also going to the understanding of how do we really encourage innovation at the grassroots levels. And if you look at the Atal Incubation Mission, it operates about 72 centers, supporting about 3,500 startups and 32,000 jobs. Our mission today, what do we do to turn policy, startups, and research into GDP gains? Manufacturing, growth, experts, global innovation, all of it placed together. So I'm going to start with a question to all of you to set context. With private R&D at 37% versus 65% in the US and 76% in China, what policy, tools, tax credits, gains can really boost that share, and how do we go about it? Vikalp, I'll start with you and then come down the panel.
Hello. Hello. Is it working? Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me here in this esteemed panel. And I think one of the things that we care a lot about, which is R&D. We don't have a different department, so to say, R&D and non-R&D. It's practically everything that we do is an R&D or an innovation at our startup. But coming back to what I think we feel is an R&D is more of a mindset that needs to be shifted from a grassroots level. Right from the time when there is a education happening, or when there is a build out of that mindset for innovators. And I think that is where we feel, and I personally feel, there's a lot of work needs to be done. And there are two things to it. Definitely those staggering numbers, be it China, be it US and all, in many industry, there has been massive investment on infrastructure, which is definitely more of a government plus large organizations job, not for the startups. For example, if you look at how the innovation around fintech is changing, there has been a large investment that has happened on creating this beautiful stack by NPCI, which is to a large extent not only government funded but also government pushed for adoption. And that is something that is such a large and population scale that government and many large institutions only can do it, which will spur this. But on the other side is a complete change in the mindset at an education level itself. See, if you look at, when I was doing my engineering, it's all about how can we get good grades, good marks, and eventually get into a good job. So that we can, and it's all about cultural nuances, per capita income, and so many economic things as well. But if you look at how other countries have evolved that mindset at a grassroots level, where it is not only about getting something to solve for the immediate needs, to actually build something that is driven out of passion and take a risk. One of the things that I keep telling the young entrepreneurs or my juniors passing out of college is, when we are in college or when we are in school, we have nothing to lose practically. But if I look at whether I was able to think that ways, if my peers were thinking in that ways, no. And I think that mindset needs to be changed, which is more of a cultural phenomena as well. So I think these two would be my points for taking us to that next level on R&D.
Thank you, Vikalp. You bring up something very important, especially with AI. The way the world is going today, everybody talks about STEAM and not just STEM, because you need the art to spark creativity, and that's what's going to really translate. To the Taleva, as you were referred to, Mr. Kumar, coming to you, what do you see as imperatives for these gaps to be filled? For what? For the gaps between where we see where R&D is at today to translate it.
Yeah, so Vikalp talked about government R&D. So let me talk about private R&D, right? So how can companies spend? So you can only do this if you are in a high margin product business, because you need revenues and you need margins more than revenues to be able to spend on R&D. So in our space, which is telecommunication products, the normal industry margin is 40%, right? So we can easily spend 15-20% on R&D. So it's actually a function of the space. The reason we need to spend so much is we need to refresh our products every year. By the time you ship one version of the product, it is you building the next one. It's like your cell phone, right? You don't buy the same model next year. It's not as bad, but it's nearly as bad, right? So we need to build faster, better, newer, smaller. So that's what drives the fact that we spend 15%, give or take something, of our revenue on R&D every year. Most of it is D, because you're keeping down developing products, but some of it is R, because you also look at the long term. In our case, we're working on 6G, so whatever we do of that is research, but that's a smaller portion, but most of it is just developing the next generation of product, and the next generation is like 1 year away. So if you're in that space, then there'll be a lot of private R&D.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, and we've been having these conversations backstage. So Mr. Sitaram, I'll come to you. You spoke about the gap also with the whole idea of patenting and all of that. While we come delve deeper into that, your thoughts on what you think we can do to reduce these gaps currently?
Yeah. One of them is also the metrics. Is that are we really capturing the investment that's going into R&D? Like Vikalp was saying, there is no separate R&D, it is all of R&D, right? I mean, same thing in many small and medium organizations, that's the situation. And the second thing is that I feel the top management, I mean, I talk mostly from the small company perspective, is that at the top you must have somebody who is constantly looking at it. It's not enough to just allocate a budget, because when you are only when the if you are the CEO or the owner of the organization, when you are fully involved in the activity as well, then you will come to know the outcomes and why it is not happening. Then the team working on that will get the confidence that yes, I can continue to work because I have the support. So this is, I think, one of the very important thing in terms of the private R&D.
Absolutely, and I think this is a great stage to set off, because we've spoken about government, we've spoken about culture and mindsets, we've spoken about market dynamics, and we're also referring to the entire landscape around which it's built. So Mr. Sitaram, to you, Synthesis Winding Technologies operates with a very strong in-house R&D. And design team has delivered over 150 winding machines, various globally. So including EV motors, aerospace, defense sectors, you're talking also about intersecting sectors. How do you structure your R&D pipeline from really ideation to prototyping to the deployment itself on the commercial base? And what lessons can our innovation ecosystem really draw from the model to accelerate this change? There are a lot of people listening, so.
Yeah. Here I got a nice word from what Sivaranjan said. Little R and more D is what we do in the small organizations. It's we don't get into developing molecules or that math connectivity between some data sets. No, that's not what we do. For the last 2 weeks, I've been thinking about this, not because of ETS, but also the situation in our company. What prompts us? We don't have a structured R&D, we don't have a particular program, and as I said, a lot of innovation, but no patents filed. So what is happening? And we also don't have anybody with a PhD. Once in a while, here and there, somebody with a master's degree, but they are also not really involved in this part of the activity. But how is it happening is that, what came to my mind is, when you look at deer, they have the ears like that, and it is constantly rotating all around, listening for, trying to pick up sounds. You keep doing that enough, and everybody in the organization keeps doing that enough to pick up pain points that exist in the market, okay? Once you pick up pain points, you get hooked onto it very deeply and emotionally, and you just sleep over the pain, you eat with that issue, you stay with that issue all the time, and you will get ideas to solve that thing. So that is one very important part. So the idea should come by itself. You're not going to sit down and try to force yourself to come with an idea. You're sleeping with the problem and the idea comes. Now, there are two other important things that I think are necessary in a small organization, which I hope we have been successful in that. Once somebody gets an idea, the idea can come to anyone in the organization. Is that once they get an idea, there must not be a bureaucratic procedure where you will have to go through and get approvals and all that. It should become very easy, it should become very spontaneous. And second thing, constantly we must be creating this environment where everybody feels that it's okay to fail, If something caught fire, the next question you will ask is, next time when it catches fire, make sure that you are safe, That's the kind of conversations we should have. So when you create, this deep sense of connect with the problem, and then remove the bureaucratic process of getting an approval to go and try something, and then letting people know constantly on an everyday basis that it's okay to fail. You can experiment, you can fail 5 times, 10 times, no problem. Give them a little space, give them a little money, give them a little time, and then do it. And then in our kind of organizations, most small organizations, we cannot have a separate R&D team. Everybody becomes R&D, including the accountant is R&D. In fact, I was just talking to Vikalp. Sometimes that creativity, we are trying to see, how to hold it under a little control, because you don't want everybody to be creative in everything, It's like enthusiastic horses, you need to sometimes hold them back, yeah? So you want the whole organization to be thinking in terms of R&D, not just one small team.
Truly, it's like building a muscle. Dr. Shivaranjan, coming to you, Tejas Networks offers a repeatable blueprint, especially when you look at deep tech exports. Can biotech or AI replicate this really, as we keep talking about AI in the world today?
Okay, so I want to tell you that biotech was already the leader. Okay, so Indian pharma industry, if I broaden it, has actually made global inroads. We are the pharma suppliers to the world, two-wheelers, auto parts. So in some sense, we followed, right? So we are using the engineering strength. So AI, possibly yes, and in services, I think our IT companies, of which they're all headquartered here, have taken big leaps to sort of ensure AI is applied properly across the world. So I think yes, there are a few spaces where India excels, biotech, pharma, rather than biotech, but now all of them are setting up new sort of research organizations where they're trying to discover new drugs. Earlier it was about getting drugs which are out of patent, and I think many of them are starting to become successful. Every pharma company now has a biotech division, and they will get into discovering molecules. And we were making auto parts for a long time. Now we have at least 2 big companies making cars entirely in India. I mean, not counting Maruti, both Tata Motors. So I think we didn't build the first ChatGPT, but I think we're very good at trying to use it and build a services model. So I'm sure we will. But one area which you didn't mention, where we probably need to do something, is like quantum computing. That's sort of the next AI. And if you build that, it can revolutionize the way you're computing. I hope there are companies out there, it's not my domain, taking some steps. But
yeah, it is ripe from a growth perspective. So, Vikalp, to you, ELCIA scaled from the pilot being becoming hospital-wide. What regulatory, hospital, or digital enablers were essential for that process, and what were the learnings that you had when you went from and through that journey?
And thanks for that question. We operate in health, which is pretty sensitive industry in general, regulated. There are multiple players, be it pharma, be it doctors, hospitals, and so on and so forth. Lots of standards. And every time when we look at regulation and innovation, or policies and innovation, we basically see that they are two sides of the spectrum. Yeah. Policies or regulations sort of not enable innovation. But what I sort of realized is that it's the other way around. At least for me and us, it has been opposite. And to explain that in a little more subtle way, I'm a developer. The whole team is basically developers, product, design folks who are building these softwares for medical record keeping, be it for hospitals, clinics, or even patients like all of us, which today we don't keep, by the way. So a little bit of marketing, but we should use apps to keep our medical records, because sort of your health is the most important thing. But coming back to how policies and regulations are important and helped us is, I came from an industry which is absolutely opposite. It's travel. Knew nothing about healthcare. How do you learn? One is you learn by doing, which is what Mr. Sitaram also was spending a lot of time with an innovation, and eventually we will see that large companies are coming up from people who have been invested in that industry for a long period of time. But for us, these regulations have actually fast forward our learning process. These standardization around healthcare, how hospitals use, what is NABH standards. One of the things that really worked for us was ABDM and ABHA, which is what is government's large initiative to keep health IDs for every single citizen. And the whole policies around health, which is health data is considered to be the most sensitive data across all the spectrum, even more sensitive than financial data, because it can lead to different sort of problems and innovation as well. And all of that eventually helped us in learning this industry fast, solving for our customers, and then reaching to that scale of adoption that we wanted to. And today we operate out of many of these policies and regulation, be it HIPAA, ABDM, certain certification, or for that matter NABH for standardization. And I think I have come to as a believer that if you see from the right lens, these regulations, these policies actually helps you learn and innovate in a right direction, which can also be looked at otherwise, that okay, I can't do this, I can't do that. Yeah, that's more my two cents.
You bring up a very relevant point around policy, because often policy is seen as catching up with innovation, whereas what you're speaking to says that innovation could potentially be informed by policy, which I think is a very interesting take. And it is a spectrum, and it's also very area dependent, right? It depends on which area or field of work you're in. So my next question to all of you is really on the startup incubation support. With Startup India backing about 159K plus startups, 187 startups really enjoying tax relief, what gaps do you see that are remaining in markets of funding or talent, which could potentially lead to the R&D wave that you're all sort of wanting to bring in? We can start with you.
Something which is close to my heart, especially because we are a startup raising capital, also trying to build novel AI model, be it on health and so on and so forth. So I think one of the key things that I keep talking about is if you look at the way research and innovation happen across other countries, be it China and again going back to my first point of government, the procurement process and the way the startups, so there are three stages of a startup. One is you think of innovation, second is you build, and the third is you have a sustainable business model around that, right? And I think that is where India today has to catch up quite a lot, which is what we also talk about, ease of doing business, easy procurement process, be it even at a larger corporate level. How do we see startup as an enabler for, say, not only government, but for the Tatas of the world, for Infosys and so many others, where this network gets created, where from idea to development to eventually building out a very large business model that has been cracked beautifully. If you look at US, a companies like Palantir, when it started, was being used by CIA for that matter, right? It's how can a startup be a supplier to a defense, or how can be a startup be a supplier to Tata Motors for that matter? And I think that is an area, as soon as we catch that up, I think the funding and all of that will just quadruple. So that would be...
which is, you bring up a very relevant point, and which is something that we're trying to do as well. Entrepreneurship that works in tandem with the large conglomerates and corporations, and if you can create sort of community-based innovation and learning, that's a great point that you bring. Doctor, to come to you.
Yeah. So I think the most important thing government can do to help startups is to give market access, okay? You will get money from VCs, right, and you know how to make business plans, all of this is fine. But getting a market is the most important thing. In our own case, you know, we got to where we are because the government decided to build 4G and 5G indigenously, right? And then they said, you Indian companies compete. And that gave us a huge fillip. Even if you look at electric cars, I think the first 10,000 electric cars were bought by the government of India for between Mahindra and Tatas. So if you can only do one thing, the government, to support startups, give some sizable business, okay, market access or business. Everything else the startups can figure out themselves. And even the VCs want to know who's your first customer.
Yeah,
Mrs.
I was looking at it from two parts. One is whether there is finance and policy support. There have been phenomenal initiatives in that space. Atal mission, when you read it up, it is is fantastic. MSME is fantastic. I just wanted to also take the example of, for example, Dr. Naganamaya was here. I don't know whether he's here now. I happened to casually go to CMTI for something. He caught me and gave a grant. Okay, he caught me and gave a grant. So phenomenal things are existing. But again, as Vikalp and Sivarajan was saying, there has to be a continuity. There are some good examples when you say that the first 10,000 EVs, and we also see the defense thing. But we need to really see how it can be horizontally deployed. Last month I was at the Bharat Drone Stack, and several of the companies that are making fantastic drones were complaining that where is the order? The government is saying we have to innovate, we will give you some grant, we will do that, and there is one company in Bangalore, I suppose, that is doing that swarming drones, right? I think the 3 orders they got was twice for the Republic Day, once for the Mysore Parade, 1,000 drones doing some thing. Now you'd have to get real orders, and so that they can sustain. First of all, what you worked on it for 5-7 years, now you have to start generating a revenue and a profit. And as Dr. Sivarajan was saying, once that is profitable, then apart from VC funding, you can also invest from your own sources. And then one of the company who did a lot of work for many years on defense related drones moved out to commercial drones because they were not getting orders. And they were saying that one of our member company here in Electronic City was saying once the Operation Sindoor started, they said, how many drones can you supply this week? Who will have any drones? One prototype that you build, you can supply, right? So that scale to build, I mean, if you are doing 100 and if you want 1,000, it is a 10x. But if you are not building anything, then it becomes infinite. So the government, like Dr. Sivarajan said, should identify these things and then keep doing a little bit for the ecosystem to be thriving.
And you
Thanks.
say ecosystem, and that's an important word, because when you see this ecosystem here, you recognize that maybe everybody is wanting information and they're all doing their own research, but what if there was a collective space where research that could be accessed through primary or secondary sources could actually be made available for startups or organizations looking to scale. Now I move the lens to culture and talent and how that informs this shift that we're looking to see, and all of you refer to it in different ways, right? So how do we encourage returning founders, especially with the whole returning movement that's beginning now, and sort of the ecosystem to cultivate risk-taking in labs, in campuses, in offices? How do you really have that push? And Vikalp, I'll start with you.
I think a tough one, how to solve for that mindset shift. But I think today we are very vocational oriented society in general, and very service oriented, not very entrepreneur real oriented, right? So I think that is what, and when I'm talking about the whole education spectrum and all, and maybe things are changing. I'm talking about what I have done like almost 15, 16 years ago. That is changing. Even I think that to me is fundamental. Unless and until we celebrate successes, right? Yeah. We do not celebrate risk taking. We never, right? That's what we were discussing. Mr. Sitaraman said that, okay, till the time your vision is successful, it's successful, or else it's just a madness, right? That's a very different way and very non-conforming way of thinking about changing this culture of innovation. I think that is what is more important from all of us, and these kind of conferences, college reunions, all of them has to start looking at that. While in this regard, government can do a lot, but still that would be more around grants, around basically saying do this, do that, but eventually it has to come from society. Do we celebrate failures? Do we celebrate risk-taking or no?
Even innovation, right? It has to begin at home, right? Because imagine an Indian home that's actually going to celebrate a failure, right? I don't see that happening right now, at least. But how do we really create that environment? Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Shivranjan, to you.
Yeah. See, I think there is this, tech startups, you start in a garage, you build something, and then founders own most of it, right? That's the image we have, Steve Jobs or something. But I don't think that's how most startups work, right? So you need risk capital, who venture capitalists will provide. As founders, you have an idea, you get some salary, sustenance, you don't get the industry salary, and all the risk is taken by the venture capitalists. If you do well, you'll do well too, because you forgave something. So that's the model we need to move to. Risk is taken by venture capitalists. They will invest money. They will drive you to success, business plan, all of this. And in 1 or 2 years, if your plan doesn't work out, you're shut down. Okay? So I think we need to decouple founders and innovators from risk and business. So once you do this, which is kind of the model in Silicon Valley, then you will see startups come, startups go, they fail, new startups come for the same people, and you will see something, right? But so we need to move away from, I innovated, spent 30 years of my life to build something. That is not the way to scale. Okay.
Such a relevant juncture that. The same question on culture. And
I had the privilege of chatting with Dr. Sivaranjan before this session, and that was very insightful for me, and he has also very kindly agreed to give me some time to talk more about it after the session. I'm looking at this risk-taking from two places. One is the workplace and the other one is the society. At the workplace, one good way is, there are always some seniors in the organization who are reasonably well respected. Take time to pick out stories of hardships that you thought you will die and eventually succeeded. Keep those stories going in the organization during, informal conversations. I feel it is a very, very important thing. In our company, we have this thing about, somebody driving and somebody going with you. You tell one of the old stories and then somebody captures it, records it on the mobile phone. Sometimes you write it down and you narrate these stories. This is one. Second is at school. If we can somehow at least stop giving scholarships to somebody who scored the top marks in school, that is a very, very good way. In ELCIA Trust, we have discussed this often. Can we find ways to give scholarships by recognizing students for other factors? For example, taking leadership in some other area. Somebody is fell down and injured his leg, can somebody else bring that boy or girl on the cycle to the school? Yeah. Now, this is taking responsibility. Can we give scholarships for responsibility? Can we give scholarship for leadership in a thing rather than for marks? As I know, all of the scholarships are who scored 97 and 98, and then it is so vulgar to every private institution. There will be a board, big hoarding showing photos of 100 and then rank 99, 98, 97 CGPA. Yeah. We should come out of this nonsense.
There you go. The culture aspect is always such an important aspect, right? Because until you change the fabric, you're not really going to be able to change that top cream layer that needs to start functioning like that, and all of you bring such pertinent points to the conversation. We've already spoken about IP creation and patents, commercializations, exports. India generates a significant amount of academic research, but it lags in patents and in all of the other aspects around IP. What interventions from patent literacy to tech transfer can really bridge this gap, and where can you start seeing that? And you spoke about the number of tabled ideas, but the ones that really now are starting to have the conversation. So Vikalp, I'll start with you. And
see, there is obviously I mean, patents and IP laws and all that matters a lot. To be very honest, I mean, we do not get too much into that, so to say, for multiple reasons. I mean, obviously, we as an organization are not in that space at this moment, but we did. So I have 2 patents that we filed in my previous company when we were doing search and social. And that process was arduous. I mean, the way it all worked out, eventually my reading for that was, and I'm not the expert there, my reading more from a person who puts in the application is, it's eventually you would realize that, okay, it's not worth the time that you ended up doing. And that sort of makes me as an individual, or maybe many others, to be like, okay, it's not something that we should sign up for it right now. Maybe when we are pretty large and there is a large legal team which is basically just doing that and then taking care of the researchers so that they don't have to do the grunt work and so on and so forth. And I think that's my more or less consumer reading at this moment. But that's about it on this particular topic, maybe.
Yeah, so there are 2 classes of companies who need to patent, right? One is startups. You need to patent because that's the only way in many sectors. Maybe Vikalp sector is different. Your VC will recognize that you have some innovation, some IPR, and that's how you get valued. If you don't patent, then you can't prove that you have done something new or have innovation. So, and if you want to raise successor rounds of funding and sell your company, then you better patent, because that's the only measure of how innovative you are in the tech sector. As a big company, you patent because you want to be protected against getting sued. Because your competitor will say you violated my patent, and you better have 1,000 patents to say you violated mine. Okay, and so these are the 2 reasons. So we patent as a startup to get valued, and you patent as a big company to protect yourself.
amazing. And
Yeah, my heart resonates with what Vikalp said. Trying to write down that form and review all that nonsense, even with a very competent attorney, is not worth the time. I have 8 claims that the attorney has sent for my review and have not reviewed and sent back to him. But my head aligns with what Dr. Sivaranjan is saying, that you have to do that, okay?
Yeah.
You have to find some way to do it. One of the things is to hire a PhD student who will sit with you possibly in the line to help you do some of these things. Idea is yours. You have to do a lot of things, but at least the writing. The number of patents and such intellectual property being filed in India is low, probably because, you know, we come from a culture of not protecting, for instance, yoga or meditation or so many other things, not only protecting, it is supposed to be not even sold, it has to be given free, you know, that's the kind of thing. But one very important way how this can be improved is through literacy and awareness. ELCIA is doing a wonderful job bringing subject experts, calling us, they come and talk to us often, and we have an opportunity. They will explain what can be patented, even simple things can be done. The process is simple. If not patent, you can do this, you can do this. And there we also get to meet, I mean, I often keep comparing ELCIA to a satsang where like Vaidi and Rajnarayan and all that, they have done a lot of things. They will tell you can do this, right? And that will give you a little bit of motivation to go and do it. So the short answer there is if every industrial area had an ELCIA, it will be very nice.
That's the power of community, right? Because when you have communities that are sort of going through the same sort of movements and motions, you automatically have other people who are sort of processing the same thing, and the collective becomes a lot more stronger, and the voice becomes a lot more, you know, and if you begin to sort of really building on that and bringing multiple communities together, you're able to really change it at the policy level, which is what we initially started talking about, right? How do you inform policy? Okay, my last segment, and before we go, do I have 2 more minutes for a last segment for all of you? Great. So, my question now is for scaling for Bharat, right? Because it's not just beyond our metros, it has to go wider. So, Vikalp, I'll start with you. The question's India's startup ecosystem is heavily urban-centric. And what incentives from rural incubators and market analytics and linkages can you really look at for shifting the innovation narrative beyond really our metros and taking this further and deeper?
By the way, when I was doing Go IBBO, it was all very urban-centric, and this is exactly the philosophy that we used to also see, that, okay, there are buyers who are largely urban buyers and so on and so forth, which is what is the case with many e-commerce startups as well as a lot of other consumer products. But when I did Arogya Setu, it was very different. And I realized that, okay, if you build something which is a real value, you would see a far more openness and adaptability in tier 2, tier 3 cities, while you would see a lot of questions on urban setup, which is true and rightly so, but there are a lot more naysayers, so to say, in a urban setting as well. And now at ECA, again, that same thing is repeating, especially in health, where we see a lot of adoption on tier 2, tier 3 cities. Obviously, metros is something that is one of the top, but it's not an 80-20, right? It's practically in the lens of 60-40. And the way things are growing, I think the access to technology, access to infrastructure, more education and understanding, and more importantly, tier 2, tier 3 is more aspiring than urban from a population sense of point. And be it doctors who are using our scribe utilities are far more in tier 2, tier 3 cities, where they are looking at 100+ patients every day, and it's very hard to do that without any technology. So that's what is my learning, and things are changing for the country. ECA, we see a lot more tier 2, tier 3 happening for us.
Yeah. So I don't think you can dictate where the startup should be, right? Startups are successful when they solve problems they're close to, local problems. So India cannot have startups which are solving primarily a US problem. The reason we have so many successful startups here is because they've started to solve India's problems. So if you want startups in a small town, they have to be solving problems relevant to that, and that may not be traffic in Bangalore, okay? So as long as you some way have to encourage startups to solve local problems, I think they will come up in small towns.
Yeah, I was thinking about, in the rural areas, there is a poverty of ideas, not in terms of creative ideas, but the poverty that they can also aspire to start a business of their own and things like that. So one way I was thinking, in fact, I was thinking of doing that at least once a week, is to go and, request the headmaster to allow me to talk for 2 hours to some kids on a Saturday afternoon, just to talk. And it is possible that one of the bigger villages in there will be high schools and then, or a junior college or something. We can set up some centers there where somebody nearby will go and talk to the kids for just about 2 hours a week and tell them that it is possible for you to create your own business. And like Dr. Sivaranjan was saying, they will not solve problems for America or for Bangalore, but there will be problems in that small space, and they can start a business around that. And there are good examples, they're doing it, but we can expand that by creating the small ecosystem, very low cost, and somebody senior going and just spending a little time with them.
That's a lovely paid forward idea, and it's also the storytelling that you were talking about, right? And the only way that students or aspirants can be somebody is they can be you only when they see you, right? So they need to be able to see the promise of what the future holds. With that, do we have time for a question, or we're up
I
top?
think we are really
Okay,
pushing.
thank you.